Did you know that the Fortnite lobby is a 3D space, and that 3D space is housed inside of a 3D cube? And that 3D cube is next to a whole bunch of developer messages hidden outside into the void. And if we pan the camera all the way out to show you every single thing that was written out here in the void, it says theater hex map, armory, inspect item, front end background, world map, lobby, party backdrop, and skill tree. These are all functions that are supposed to be in the menu before you jump into a mode. And in fact, a lot of these different things before you start a mode are all housed in the same environment. Right over to the left of those words I just read out for you is more spaces housed inside of cubes. Like this little area here where you can whack the piñatas amongst other things. You can take the camera out and you can see that the view on the outside of the window is actually just a cube of outdoor textures. In fact, it intersects that texture with one another to enclose this environment. But that's not all. The Save the World map is actually in this area too. Though, if you're not accessing the map at the time, it's all just purple storm clouds. However, if you do have Save the World opened, you can see the tiny miniature map here, and you can take the camera in and you can look all around this lower poly version of the map. We still got a lot more to talk about before you even jump into the world of Fortnite. We're gonna go over events, we're gonna talk about different updates, and I'm gonna show you some pretty cool stuff in an ongoing series where we basically take the camera anywhere we want to try to find secrets and new discoveries to some of our favorite games. And today we're gonna be finally looking at Fortnite Out of Bounds with the help of Alley Jack Squared, a prominent member of the sleuthing of Fortnite content. I'll have links to their social media in the video description down below. But with that said, let's talk a little bit more here about the menus. Due to various updates, the lobby can have all sorts of different environments. Here we have a Halloween themed one with a ghost that actually starts out of bounds before it comes into frame. Not only that, but you can see a castle in the background. If you take the camera over there, you can see it's a flat texture. Also, the crows are incredibly detailed. If you take the camera up to them, you can see they have textured eyes, as well as a very detailed texture for its feathers. In this Season 8 lobby, you can take the camera out. You can see that the environment artists use a series of ovals to make the ground, and that the volcano at the top here actually does have lava running through it, which is really surprising. Funny enough, in Season 7 with this background, one of those other areas can be seen in the background. It's so innocuous though that you, the player, probably would never think, oh yeah, that's just another zone or area of the menu system. Also, at a certain point, the map was a whole planet, and if you took the camera off its axis to take a look at it, you can see that the planet is fully modeled. It's a full sphere. However, the texture for it is only done on half of the sphere, which is really neat. Also, the galactic background is just one giant texture, sort of looking like tie-dye when you look at it in full view. Another really cool thing that you can notice from this angle too is that the soft glow around the edges of the planet are pulled off by this texture that looks like a ring. And next, I really want to talk about the mysterious bunkers, but there's something we gotta get out of the way first. Alright, real quick, I'm getting a bit tired of playing the same type of games lately, so I tried out today's new sponsor, Foundation Galactic Frontier, and honestly, it surprised me in a way that feels straight out of a classic sci-fi. If you're into space operas, managing fleets, and exploring galaxies, this is right up your alley. You play as a space trader with your own ship, and the cool part is how much freedom you have. You can recruit crew, explore new planets, and take on battles across the stars. There's even a dual battle system that lets you control your squad directly, which really sets it apart from the other mobile strategy games. It's also the first mobile game based on Isaac Asimov's Foundation universe. So if you've watched the Apple TV series, you'll recognize the names like Hari Seldon and the Mule. It ties into that world in a really fun way and expands on the lore. The best part, it's free to download for both mobile and PC. So whether you want to play on your phone or the computer, you can jump right in. If you want to check it out, I've got a special link right here at the top of the description and pinned in the comments. Don't forget to use our promo code Shesez to get your in-game rewards. Big thanks to Foundation Galactic Frontier for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to breaking Fortnite. So despite the fact that this was the original map, it wasn't until update 4.10 that a bunker was added to the Wailing Woods. This bunker never seemed to have served a purpose. It was also indestructible to players, so despite the fact that you can modulate a lot of the environments in Fortnite, the bunker would remain intact. But this rabbit hole goes a little bit deep. To start with, I just want to show you this little bit of graffiti on the back of the bunker. Maybe you can make sense of it. It seems like it was originally supposed to be a hint for something, but I do want to show you what's inside of the bunker. Taking the camera over here can show you that it does have an interior. There just isn't a lot to it. But that interior is housed inside the environment as well. So it did seem like at one point there was some sort of intent to put something inside here. And we'll get to the reason why in a moment. In later updates, starting with version 7.40, there was a snow biome that had an island just off of the southwest corner of the map. In earlier updates, this was covered up by snow, and even then it didn't have the bunker there. And this one also had the concave environment that you could see inside. Once again, there's nothing really inside there, but it has a housing that could allow it to have something later on. In version 8.0, they added another bunker, this time wrapped in vines in the jungle biome. Something was supposed to be going on here. The developers clearly wanted players to get a level of intrigue and start asking why, and they were probably planning to do something really interesting with all this. I'll mention this one last time, by the way. Yes, it has an interior. Now I'll explain why I went through the trouble of telling you that over and over again. In version 11.0, there were 3 hidden bunkers in this update. One was hidden underneath a shack in an isolated island at the very top of the map. Another was in the west of the swamp underneath the ocean water. And finally, inside of a bush in the bottom right hand of the map, there was one more bunker in the mountain region. All 3 of these ones, though, don't have an interior. And only the one on the mountain region that you're looking at here seems to have a back-facing wall that goes unused. It's not a complete encasing. Like I said, all you get is a wall to show that there may have been some intent by the environmental artists to maybe do something, and then it was later scrapped. Trying to figure out what the heck was going on with these bunkers, I asked Alleyjacks, and they said that it was explained in one of the 2 comic series, and that it was a base entrance for one of the story-important factions. And although this is speculation, they seem to doubt that that was the original intent, which I find myself agreeing with. It's kind of strange that it's all in-game like this, and then it just gets removed. It's honestly kind of weird. Anyways, for one of the later maps, the distant lands that are outside of the game's boundaries seem to have things like buildings and roads off in the distance here. So I wanted to take us over there just to see what exactly this all looks like. It's kind of cool to see. Now, there's no 3D structures over here, but there's a lot of detail in terms of what this environment was supposed to look like. It's almost like a map drawn on this mountainside here.
And that worked? How long do you think it'll hold? Good. Good. Everything is starting to stabilize here. Nothing seems to be... What are you even...
All right, now let's go out of bounds in events. In update 12.61, the device event was introduced, which would transport the player from a regular environment to this office. And if you go outside the office to this hallway, you can see all the agents that are walking around, and you can see that pretty much all these agents, except for Jonesy, are Keanu Reeves. Not only that, you can also see what happens at the end of this hallway here. It's just an empty room where Keanu Reeves walks outside of the boundaries, and you can also see where this office is stored. It's actually really high up in the sky above the map. But we can also see where these structures come from to activate said device. It's kind of interesting, but also while this is all going on, you can find a dev cube in the water. Also in update 6.22, the butterfly event was introduced, and its environment is really complicated, which makes it really fun to take a look at it from out of bounds. Same goes for the unvaulting event. If you look at it from here, you might notice that there's a lot of fog being used. Well, that fog hides the fact that there's a bunch of pillars that are just stored out and above the map again. Also here you can see inside of the smokestack for the volcano, which is really funny. Now here in this next scene, I just wanted to show you a gun being fired just to see if there was any bullets, which there aren't. It's all particle effects, but it also gives us a chance to look at the character up close and give you a solid close-up of this shotgun, which this little display screen seems to show a game of Snake being played. A very old game where you would eat dots as a snake and your body would get larger and larger as you would eat more dots. Underneath that, it says Winchester. And on the side of this gun, it says Boss Merge 12. And you might notice the default skin characters have a tattoo that says Storm Chaser. This is a reference to the Save the World mode, where those characters would end up fighting the storm, making it their motto. A lot of people want me to look at the battle bus, but it's not all that special if I'm honest with you. There's no interior, sadly, at least not in the early updates. The only thing I can tell you is that the mud flap says Toadu, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot to say. Also, because this is Unreal Engine, and of course this is open area, there is a lot of level of detail used, and I wanted to show you some of it up close. Like this building here, for some reason, has the original model as well as the low level of detail model. So it's really funny to take this extremely low texture, low poly thing and go inside, and then it's just a well-furnished room. Another one that I thought stood out pretty awkwardly is this little hill with this perfectly planted trees to make a circular pattern around a treasure chest. If you take the camera away from that area though, the low level of detail model sort of spawns in its place, and with field of view, we can take the camera right up to it and show you what that looks like. And what makes it really funny looking is that the spaces between those trees was just made black, that there's no alpha texture here, so it doesn't look quite right. And then over here is the low poly version of the Der Burger. Normally it's supposed to be a burger with bulging eyes and a tongue sticking out, but here it looks like the burger was made of plastic and melted underneath the sun. Another one that was suggested by viewers of the show was to check out this map before the update that showed more of the environment. When it was first introduced, some of the environments were covered in snow, and they wanted to know if the environments were actually shown underneath. Theoretically, if you were a boundary breaker while this update was going on at the time, you'd be able to see these environments here for the first time before any other player. And this lake had a whole bunch of buildings with roofs that were sticking out of the lake. Taking the camera underneath can show you a lot of environment that would be later used. However, those roofs are not actually attached to those buildings, which is really funny. And also, interestingly enough, there's a dev cube here. And over here, there was this waterfall that looks really well detailed. But interestingly enough, it seems that the developers at one point had another idea for the waterfall, because if you take the camera inside of this waterfall, you can find another waterfall, one that just looks really different. Perhaps the environmental artists looked at this and thought we could do a bit better and just decided to overlay a different waterfall entirely. And now I just want to show you guys a couple of details up close, stuff that you probably don't take the time to notice while playing Fortnite. In this little child's bedroom, if you look at the bed, you can see a drawing of a girl looking to her right, where it seems as though she may be swimming. There's also a note written here, but sadly the texture is so low quality you could not possibly make out what was written here. But next up is this couch, and for some reason on this couch there are 4 faces, one with a tongue sticking out, another one with little funny teeth, another one with squiggly eyes, and one with a big happy grin. Also wanted to give you a close-up of the Fortnite fly. Every once in a while you might find these little guys, but they're moving around so much, and of course you're in the middle of battle, so you don't take the time to notice the details of them. Taking the camera up close and freezing the footage here will show you that their wings are pink and they have big googly eyes. There are also fish in Fortnite, so if we take a look at these guys real quick, there's a blue one with big googly eyes, There's orange ones with popped out eyes that are really far apart, and there's a thin fish too, which is really cool. The ice cream truck has a window on the back that has "Wash Me" with a smiley face written on it. A really tiny detail that you might miss. Also, not too far away from there was some gold doubloons, and many of them have their own unique patterns on them that I wanted to show you up close. There's nothing distinct about what's written on these things, but still, it's a pretty nice detail. Also in this kitchen, uncharacteristically, there is a very photorealistic person on this milk carton. It appears to be a full-grown adult man in a suit with glasses. It's possible that this was Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Fortnite, but I couldn't find an exact match for this photo, sadly. Underneath that photo, it just says missing, which is common for cartons of milk to do that, or at least it was at one point. I've never seen one like that, at least not in person. And that's it. That's all I got for now for Fortnite. Obviously, there's so much more to look at for this game. If I find that people are interested in more Fortnite, I may make some more Fortnite. Until then, feel free to check out the Grand Theft Auto 5 episode of Boundary Break that I made. It's a pretty good one. I know that's another really popular online multiplayer game, so hope you have some extra time to take another look at some more content that we got here. Thanks again to Foundation Galactic Frontier for sponsoring the video. Don't forget to download it using the link in the description. It's free on both PC and mobile, and it's the perfect game if you love sci-fi strategy. Go check it out.